there are certain filmmakers whose works I cherish, and I will see any new movie they put out sight unseen. For me, people like Sam Raimi and Quentin Tarantino are in that category. David Cronenberg is as well. This guy has made some incredible films. He's someone I'll just go out and support on principle. And now that I think about it, something these filmmakers all have in common is that they're not super prolific. Unlike someone like Ridley Scott, who seems to make 15 films per year, these guys are kind of notable because they are choosy with their projects. It becomes more of an event when a new Cronenberg film comes out, for example. And I sort of look at these sorts of directors as being very, you know, since they're choosy with the projects that they select, I seem to have more of an expectation that whatever they do choose to do, they must be very passionate about it and have something to say. Now, I didn't know much about Crimes of the Future other than it was being touted as sort of a return to his body horror roots. When I left the theater, my immediate reaction was this film felt like Existenz meets Crash meets Videodrome, and I'm honestly not sure how I feel about it overall at the moment. Now, without diving into spoiler territory too much, the basic premise is Viggo Mortensen plays this guy who's continually growing new organs that seem to have no purpose. Leah Seydoux cuts him open and removes these unique organs as part of like this performance art piece that the two of them do together. And Vigo thinks like if he doesn't cut these organs out, that he'll die, that they'll just grow like crazy all over and end up killing him, which is why he's decided to sort of cut them out in this sort of performance art thing. You might have seen some of the promotional material where the guy had all the ears all over his body and stuff like that. But soon Vigo sort of gets wrapped up in this very bizarre like cult of people who eat plastic and want him to perform an autopsy on this young dead boy. If it sounds weird, it's because it is weird. It's not a super accessible movie. It's one of these Cronenberg films that delves into stuff that's so kind of weird and bizarre that an average moviegoer will probably check out quite early. In fact, when I saw this in the theater today, there was one other person in the theater. It's a girl probably my age. She had a big bucket of popcorn. She had like a slushie or something. After 20 minutes of this movie, she got up and walked out. So it's that kind of thing. It's not super accessible from the get-go to a quote-unquote normie who's not maybe used to seeing some of this older David Cronenberg sort of stuff. Now, speaking of that, if you like classic Cronenberg, this movie is definitely classic Cronenberg. If you had no idea who directed this movie, you would immediately know as you watched it. It has all of the hallmarks and the trademarks of David Cronenberg. A lot of the Existenz body iconography stuff is here. So if you remember in Existenz, they make the gun out of like fish bones and stuff. It has a very specific look, or the actual weird sort of organic like controller that they press that's kind of like alive that they hooks into their spine and stuff that looks very organic and real, like a sort of like a something that has like biochemistry. It doesn't look like a machine necessarily. It looks like a living organic thing. That's here. There's a really interesting concept of people sitting in these weird chairs that look very similar to something you'd see in Existenz, and it moves your body around. So like when you eat food, it maximizes how your body digests it and stuff like that. It's very odd. There's some very, very strange stuff here. There's a lot of unusual sort of sex fetish motifs a la Crash. If you've ever seen Crash, that is a lot about people crashing into cars and then getting turned on and having sex. There's a lot of sexuality at play with some of the weird body dissection stuff that they're doing in this. At one point, Leah Seydoux sticks her tongue and sort of, if you imagine like a very famous scene of James Woods in Videodrome where he has an opening in his stomach and he sort of puts a tape in. Imagine something similar to that, but she starts tonguing it on Viggo Mortensen. I think that's when the girl that was in the theater with me stood up and walked out. I think that was the moment that she was out at that time. So you see a lot of that kind of stuff. Like you will recognize when you're watching this, oh, this is a very Cronenberg moment here. This looks very Cronenberg, etc. So if you love that kind of stuff, you're going to get it here. So Cronenberg fans will be happy that he sort of delved back into his sort of this mastery of uncomfortable body horror. After spending most of the 21st century doing sort of like these exceptional crime thrillers, History of Violence, Eastern Promises, things of that nature. I remember, just watching these like these are really good movies, but those weren't the kind of movies that a lot of Cronenberg fans that grew up in the 80s and the 90s wanted. They wanted more of like the traditional, hey, this is your style. You're sort of delving off into something outside of your wheelhouse, even though it's really good. We want you to go back. He's back with this, so you'll be happy. That being said, I think I liked this movie, and it might improve in my mind as I sit with it, but my initial reaction was, okay, that was interesting, but I'd rather be watching any of these other Cronenberg films. And one of the problems you have when you've crafted such iconic films and carved such a unique aesthetic is that any new body horror film you do will inevitably be compared to these classic films that you've done. Even going back to like his most mainstream sort of thing, like The Fly, right? That is sort of quintessential body horror, and nothing in this sort of reaches that sort of level for me. And I don't think this movie will be remembered as anything particularly special down the road. Is it good? Yeah. I mean, David Cronenberg doesn't make bad movies, so, even the worst David Cronenberg movie is still going to be a unique, interesting watch. So I definitely think you should watch this movie. Cronenberg, he himself is worthy of support, and it's always good to see whatever new weirdo idea comes out of his, crazy mind. So I'm always interested in seeing that. But I'm kind of literally reviewing this right after I saw the movie. I fully recognize, as I am giving this review right now, literally less than an hour after I've left the theater, I haven't thought about everything yet. It's still got to percolate in my mind. His films can be very challenging. They have a lot of layers to them. I totally understand and get that. And I have no doubt that my grade of this would probably go up and will probably go up the more I think on it and the more articles I read about it, and just sort of see like what exactly did I miss here. And I'll inevitably I'll go back and rewatch this again with a fresh set of eyes as well. So once I let the concept stew a little bit, my grade will probably go higher. But right now, my immediate, hey, I just got out of the theater. It's good. It's just not exceptional. I wanted sort of something really awesome from David Cronenberg. What I got was something, yeah, this is cool, this is weird, this is unique, this is giving me my Cronenberg thing that I like, but I don't necessarily know if the story was something that worked for me. So overall, though, as of right now, I'm gonna give this a C plus.